Welcome to the Soulful Marriage Conversations podcast. I am Elbony Riggins, founder of the 90-Day Marriage Plan, host of Marriages That Matters live talk show, life and relationship coach and author. Each week, I will bring you a guest, a thought, or deliver a conversation on hot topics and talks about the reality of real-life marriage experiences that will help you understand the truth about what it really takes to build successful relationships, so you can overcome your feeling of being alone, eliminate the fear of a failing relationship with your partner to experience a happier life and relationship. We don't have to live our lives unhappy in relationships. Instead, we choose to tap into our intuition and make the powerful choices to marry our vision and become the solution for change to produce loving, supportive relationships in our lives. Get ready to have soulful marriage conversations. Let's go. Welcome to episode 01. This is introduction of Elbony Riggins. Elbony Riggins is a certified life and relationship coach, a wife, a mother of 5 children, 2 being her stepchildren, and 3 of them are in the ages of 12 to the age of 19 years of age. I have been so happy about this episode, about just giving a general introduction of who I am and how I came into creating the Soulful Marriage Conversations podcast. To give you a little bit of general synopsis of my life, I'm just going to share with you how I began to, find this interest in relationships. At a very young age, my mother and my father separated. I've always been driven to have a close relationship with my father. He imprinted at a very young age a love, a care that I felt at a very, very young age. At the age of 5, he was separated from my mom. He was separated out of my life. We were living up north. We came to the south. And I began to learn and meet my mother's side of the family. When I met my mother's side of the family, I was still young, but I met her sisters. I met my grandparents, which my biological grandmother, she was deceased, but I met my great aunt, which raised my mother as her own child. So she became known to me as my grandmother. Then I met my grandfather on my mom's side. And then I also met my father. I knew of my father's mother and his sisters, but I didn't have a relationship with them. So I never really got a chance to know them like I got a chance to know my mother's side of the family. Being around my mother's side of the family, I began to just look upon them as role models. Because my aunts, they were married. I had an aunt that had been married for several years. She had 5 children. She had been married for several years to her husband now. And my grandmother and my grandfather, they were married and they took in families. They took in children, like their parents. Like when my mother's mother passed away, they took in my grandmother's children. Then she took in her brother's kids. And it was just an ongoing thing for her that she was a caring, nurturing mother figure. But I saw her on an everyday basis at a very young age, and I watched how she ran her household. I watched her as she was a wife to her husband. She was a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home mother. She tend to the grandchildren because we would come over after school. We would be over there during the summertime, and she would just tend to us. I noticed how she kept her house in order. She made sure that the food was ready and available for him, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She fed all of her grandchildren, but she had more than 20. And sometimes it would be 20 of us at the house at one time, and she had to cook a meal for all of us. And for some fine reason, we were never hungry. Even though she had so many kids that would be there, we were never hungry. So I appreciate the mothering that she did, that she showed us. She showed us faithfulness. She showed us consistency in her behavior, meaning that I never saw my grandparents have an argument in front of us. Never saw them arguing. I always saw her being a caring, nurturing wife, and I saw him being a caretaker of her, meaning that he went out and made sure that whatever they needed that he could provide, he did so. And I appreciated that. On my mother's side, her father, I saw him and his wife, my grandmother, being that woman that she was. She worked, she cared for him, she kept her house in order, she cooked his meal, she cared for him. And likewise, he did the same for her. He was that individual that he just sat quietly and they just talked and they kind of laughed and, things were said, and it was always a little soft, gentle laugh gesture, but it was nothing that was harmful. So I never saw any activities in their relationship, meaning that I never saw the arguments. I never saw dysfunction in either of my grandparents' household. And I can really appreciate that because that imprinted a lot on my life. And because they had been married for so many years, I really appreciated the fact that I had that opportunity to experience that. Now, I looked upon my mother's sister, which was the oldest sister, and she was a busy woman. She worked a full-time job. She had 5 children, and she always had to come home from work, come home, cook dinner, take care of responsibilities and other things. So she was always in and out, busy, taking care of things. And I watched her as she was the caretaker and the person of I have to do, I must do, I have to take care of in order for things to run and function. And I looked at her as a role model because I was like, wow, she does so much, but she's taking care of her duty as a mother, as a wife, as a, going to work and holding all of these responsibilities. And so as I got older, I began to thrive for that relationship, with family. I love to see family together. So at a young age, I imprinted a thought in my head that I always wanted a big family. I can remember at the age maybe 13, it may have even been younger, but I told my mother that I wanted to have 5 children and I was going to name my son Coleman, and I would help people solve their problems. I wanted to be there for people to help them solve their problems, but I also was so interested and enthused about relationships. Because as I got older, I began to see that relationships did not last forever. And I began to question the fact, why is it that relationships don't last, that people fall apart? Remembering that my mother and my father separated at a very young age. But I looked upon my family and I saw that their relationships were lasting. But everything else outside of that, people in relationships, they were falling apart. People were not staying together. People were not happy. People were so discontent. And one thing I realized is that being discontent is not a good thing. But also being content can also be not a good thing in relationships. Because if you're discontent, that means that it's something that's not satisfying to you. If you're content, that means you may be okay with the way things are, but you could be just learning to live with the way things are. So that's the reason why I say it could be a positive or a negative to contentment. And I began to believe that relationships are supposed to be happy. People in relationships should be happy with who they are and the person that they are in relationship with, and they supposed to support and love one another. Support one another on a level that if it's a dream, if it's a goal, whatever it is that they have a desire, that person's supposed to uplift them and encourage them and stand beside them to help them reach their destiny. When they're hurting, they are there to be that shoulder to cry on, to be that helping hand to fulfill whatever needs they have and to support whatever needs, whether it's financial, physical, mental, whatever it is that they need, and also to have a spiritual connection with one another and to Christ. I believe that having a relationship has to have a deeper connection with one another. And so I began to see that people weren't happy. People didn't have the spiritual connection together. They didn't have Christ in their relationship, and marriages were falling apart, and they had nothing to depend on. And they were searching and searching for help. Sometimes they couldn't find the help. Sometimes people would be there to try to help them, but they still found no resolve. And one thing I began to realize as I began to just research and talk to people through conversations about relationships, I realized that people were hurting people hurt people, and that people, number one, are not held accountable for what it is that they're experiencing. They're not holding themselves accountable. They're not acknowledging that they have a problem with themselves first, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. You can't give love freely when you have no love inside of you to give. And I realized that because I saw the harshness. I saw people just doing some just terrible things to people. And I began to have this just real passion about women, because I saw women suffering. So many women suffering in their relationships. So many women giving up their dreams and the things that they were passionate about, because they felt as though they could not pursue the things that they wanted to, because it was their responsibility to be that wife to that husband, and that nothing else mattered about what it was that they wanted. I saw women working jobs, coming home, being mothers to their children, helping their children with their homework, cooking their meals, their family's meals, cleaning the house, helping their husband with anything that he needed, but lacking taking care of themselves. Lacking taking care of themselves, meaning having self-love, self-care, fulfilling the desire that they have, seeking after personal development, having the job of their dream, doing things that they love with their friends and relatives. They were just so absorbed into being a wife, being a mother, being a caretaker, but never putting themselves first. And I didn't like that. I did not like the fact of seeing women that their energy and everything, part of them was just their family, and they never put themselves in the category. They never put themselves even on the top of the list of individuals to care for. What I learned, and I began to believe, this is my own personal opinion, is that you have to be, as a woman, a caretaker of yourself first in order to be able to nurture the needs of other individuals. Because when you are exhausted, you will not have the energy to do the things that you need to do in your home, with your partner, or with your children, if you're not taking care of yourself. I had many women that were not happy in their relationship that would come to me and have conversations about trust issues, respect, things that they wanted to do, and they were put on hold because they felt like once they have kids and a husband, their life is over. And some people even told them that story, that when you have kids, your life is over. There's no longer you. It's all about your children. And I don't believe that to be true. I believe that everything needs to be balanced, or consider it this way, because some people don't believe in balance. Whatever works for you. I believe that balance is whatever works for you. You can't be all things at all times. So we all know that we have to switch our lives into gear in different points at different times of the day. We're going to be killing it in one area. We may be lacking in the next area. But whatever we can do
to help balance it out or to make it work. That's what we have to do. And that's what marriage and relationships and having children is all about to me. It's that balance in life, making life work for you and your family. Sometimes I've seen where people put their children first and put their husband second. And I don't believe in that either. I believe that God created a circle of events to take place, and it all connected to Him first. God, self, husband, children, and family. Out the extended family. Friends, associates, co-workers, down the line. I believe that you are supposed to put God first, yourself second, your husband third, your children fourth, and so on and so on. Because if you don't get your spirit fed, then you won't be able to be the virtuous woman to your husband. That's the reason why I believe that to be a great individual, to have a great marriage, to be a great mother, I believe there are spiritual things that you need to have in divine connection with Christ. Something higher and something greater than you. I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human interaction in life. Our spirits expand. God speaks to us through our intuition, and I feel that that's His way of allowing us to have that connection to Him, but also allowing us to have that experience in a human, flesh. But we still have to have some type of connection to some higher power other than ourselves. Otherwise, we would be like chickens with our head cut off. We wouldn't have a will. We wouldn't have the ability to connect and adapt ourselves in this crazy world that we live in. I don't believe that we would be able to have self-control if we didn't have something that I call intuition leading us and guiding us, speaking to us. And sometimes as individuals, we don't even tap into it. But there is something that is higher than us that's calling us to do the right things, that we call are the right things, that make life balanced. So with all that being said, I just began to realize that I wanted to create change in the lives of women. I wanted women to live life to their own experience, to not only have a happy life, but also to have a happy marriage and to experience life on their own terms, meaning that they know how to make the choices that is right for them. They know how to tap into their intuition and seek after the right things that they need to seek after in order to create the life that they truly, truly want to live and experience every day of their lives. And in order for them to do that, they had to make the choice. They had to know what was necessary for them to be able to make those choices. And it starts with a vision. It starts with them connecting with themselves and with their partners. And then having a vision. Making that powerful choice. And to produce change in their lives. There is no other way that a woman can make a change and produce a happy life until she has tapped into her intuition and she makes that decision what she really wants for her life. So what I can say is that is the key to success in all happiness in all relationships, is that women have to understand that there is something greater than them that they must tap into to be able to make a decision for themselves of what kind of relationship they want to create, what kind of experiences they want to have in life. Thank you for joining me here, and I'll see you on the next episode of Soulful Marriage Conversations.